Believe in Astros podcast, your home for all things Astros. With your hosts, sports writer Jeff Balke and Astros broadcaster and former third baseman Jeff Blom. Now, here's Balke and Blummer.
What is up, Astros fans? Welcome to episode 63 of the Believe in Astros podcast on the Believe Podcasting Network. I'm Jeff Balke, alongside my partner Jeff Blum, chilling in Atlanta, but basking in the glow of a scintillating Astros win last night. How goes it this morning, Blummer?
So far, so good. Clouds are clearing out. It's a little bit cooler here, but it's not too bad. Should be a good day.
As I just mentioned to you, it's golf weather here, buddy. I'm sorry to tell you.
Jerk. Yeah. Well, eventually we'll find some, but I'm glad Houston's enjoying it.
Yeah, well, it came down hard raining the other night, as you remember, and so this is the payoff for that, I think, which thankfully, I am slightly tired this morning. I had a little too much fun last night with my buddy Frank and his girlfriend and my wife.
Good for
but it's
you.
okay. I won at Trivial Pursuit, so that's the main thing that I can take away from that. We're doing this on Saturday morning because I had jury duty yesterday, and I was actually hoping to get picked. This is a little tip for Houstonians. If you're in the city of Houston, if you get called for municipal jury duty, that's the city's actual jury duty, try to get on a panel because all municipal courts end at the end of the day. So it's not one of these drawn out things where you could be stuck there for like a month listening to people talk about eminent domain or something horrible or getting murdered or whatever. So at the end of the day, you're done and you get exempt for 3 years. So I wanted to be on a panel, and I was there for.
It looks like fun.
No, well, sometimes I think they have night court, but this one was. I got there at 9:30 in the morning. I was hoping to be on a panel. At 10:30, they said, well, there's no trials today. Everybody can go home. And I was like,
there's a day of no trials in Houston?
Well, but they said that there's no jury trials. So they set the docket. They have 7 courts, and they set the docket. And if there's nobody that's going to have a jury trial that day, they said there were 400 cases in front of judges.
Damn.
I was having my fingers crossed, but no, never. Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that's a lot, but maybe not.
Tough
anyway,
break,
I got
I'm sorry to hear it, man.
Yeah. I know everybody's like, you didn't get picked for jury duty. The last one I almost got picked for, I was really close, and they dismissed us all, was this case where this woman killed her husband and then tied herself up and said thugs did it, and they were going to do an episode of Dateline for it, and they were saying, expect to be here at least a month. I'm like, no. I'm sorry. I want to do my civic duty.
$27 a day or whatever it is or something.
Oh, yeah. God. Yeah. God to help me if I'm sequestered. The hell am I going to do then?
That'd make for a good podcast.
All right. You can find us on Spotify. Exactly. We're starting this. I'll tell you, we're starting this one out roaring. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, and of course, YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe to keep up with us, and give us a follow on Twitter. And now on Instagram as well. Believe in Astros. Find me at Jeff Balke, Blummer27, everywhere on social media. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can get alerted to new videos, and you can add us as subscribers. And listen, thanks to everybody who's given us 5 stars on Apple. If you shouldn't, you really should consider yourself peer pressured because all the cool kids are doing it. I'm just saying.
Yep.
And we've got quite a few new ones lately, which is great. And so keep sending us those comments and questions. The one today I have, and we're going to discuss it right off the top. How would Blummer, TK, and Julia react if the camera panned to a guy in the crowd who grabbed his girlfriend's breast? That is exactly what I saw the other day. I think it was a Baltimore game. I can't remember who it was. But we're going to start that right out. We're going to call this segment WWBD. What would Blummer do? And in this particular video I'm referencing, there's a group of 4 people. They shoot them in the crowd. It was 2 women sitting in the middle, 2 guys on the outside. And the announcer said, there's a happy couple of couples. They're enjoying the game. And then the guy just reaches over and grabs his girlfriend's boob. Now, he does. It's obviously a joke. It's obvious they're all kind of laughing about it in this group, including the women. So it wasn't some untoward sexual harassment issue. This was them being silly. But the only thing the announcer said right off the bat was, oops. And then it was sort of silent. And then there was muffled laughter while they tried to get through the inning. So I'm curious, Blummer, were this situation to present itself to you, how do you imagine you would handle, not that anyone in Houston would ever do something like this, obviously. But, and by the way, have you ever had to handle a circumstance similar?
Not the groping, no. I haven't gotten a grope. We haven't witnessed a groper on our. We are not plugging this company, but our T-Mobile coverage cam on air usually pans the crowd, and we have not had the opportunity to have a groper call. But just off the top of my head, I would say that there's two couples watching a game, and man, she looks like a handful.
Oh my Jesus Christ, Blummer. This is why you get paid the big bucks.
Yeah. And I just thought of that too. I had no idea this was coming, by the way.
I did not prep for you for this at all. This was completely spontaneous.
I'm 12.
Wow. Bravo. Well, yeah. And remember I was saying the weather was nice outside? It's good because otherwise
we're a little moist this morning.
That's right. I know how so many people really don't like that.
Oh yeah.
I know we're going to get in trouble. But it's funny. Those kind of calls must be crazy though, when things like that come up.
Truth be told, and even TK knows this. That's why he gives me the side eye sometimes, because sometimes I will have the urge to just try and break my partner, Todd Callis. And it's because he is so professional.
Does it ever
He's
work?
so prepared. Oh, I've gotten him a couple times. I can't remember offhand right now how many, when I've gotten him. I got him the other day with that Anthony Bass comment. He just kind of I say it and he just kind of goes, gives me a nod, just kind of looks at me, realizes what I did there, and he just kind of nods. And I'm like, yes. But my entire goal is to get him to be able to push his cough button and not speak for a couple of seconds. But he's good, man. He can keep it together.
Oh yeah. He's not the Jimmy Fallon of SNL or the Bill Hader who breaks it like everything.
Yep.
He's got it. He's the Kenan Thompson of your broadcast, which is awesome. It's funny you say that you just want to get him to break. I feel like that's a good rule of thumb if you're doing something like a broadcaster, if you're writing or something like that is, if you're trying to do something funny, your only goal should be to get like one person. That's it. If one person gets it and finds it funny like you do, it's gold, man. It doesn't matter if anybody else finds it funny or not. If you get it and one other person gets, it's the best.
I'm set.
Especially if it's somebody in the booth with you.
Oh my gosh.
It's got to be great.
And there's been some movie lines that I've dropped on him too that just go flying over his head, and it's even better because he just plays it straight and dry and it just keeps going. And I'm like, this is great.
God, those are the ones I love too, because you and I grew up at the same time. And so we have a lot of the same references. So I get them when you drop them. And I know that there's that moment where Todd just keeps moving. And that's fantastic.
It could be him ignoring me too.
No doubt. So let's talk a little bit about the Astros, shall we? Dude, first of all, the 8th inning the other night against the Blue Jays, where Jose Abreu came in and shut down the top of their order, and then the Astros bust. Brian, damn it. I'm going to do that all season long.
We're going to do that.
I'm going to do it all season
for the next
long.
3 years.
I feel like just saying Abreu and then that's it. But he came in and shut them down. And then the Astros busted out for, I guess, 6 runs in the next inning. That was the most fun I've had watching baseball since the postseason last year. I rewatched the inning like twice. It was so much fun.
Yeah, it was a blast. And I mean, how often have you watched a game? And I mean, we've kind of seen it with starters who get into that 6th or 7th inning and they're battling, first and third, nobody out. They battle out of the inning, get a big double play, they fist pump, your team comes in and they score a couple of runs. But how often have you actually watched a baseball game and seen the pitcher create momentum on the offensive side. That was one of the few times where you really felt like, the bases were juiced. Brian Abreu comes in this hellish situation after pitching the night before, an inning and 2/3, throwing 23
Good
pitches.
call.
I mean, putting that on top of it and having him come in with the expectation of trying to get out of this. And in your head, you're doing just limit the damage, keep it within 1 or 2 runs, because then a swing of the bat can bring you back in it. But he goes out there and completely shoves against the Toronto freaking Blue Jays, who are known for their offense. And he walks off the mound, and the Astros proceed to give him another 6 runs, and this ends up being an 8-something game. And I'm going, oh my gosh, this is one of those, and it was also one of those games where in game 147, when we're starting to count magic numbers, that you go back to and you say, this might be where it turned around for these guys.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Because also, by the way, Luis Garcia,
oh dear God, did he look good?
Looked, I think you and I texted about it. He looked violent on the mound. Like I went back and I had a bunch of Astros games stored on the DVR from like the last couple of weeks. And I went back and found Luis Garcia's last start. He looked like a different pitcher on the mound in that game.
Right?
Like he was, I mean, the ball was snapping out of his hand. It looked like he was
velo attack. The game I watched, it was unbelievable.
Yes. The previous game I watched, it almost looked like it was I don't want to say lackadaisical, but it was just a low energy, and it didn't have he didn't have the attack in his pitches. This one, it looked like he was just out there with evil intent.
Well, I almost wonder that last start he had, he went from a 7 to a 7.71 before this previous start that we're talking about. And he had comments. Martin Maldonado had comments afterwards where they were saying, hey, it wasn't all that bad. I worked on some stuff and I feel like I'm getting somewhere. Guess what? It worked. He had us all fooled because he came out and absolutely dominated a very good hitting lineup with velocity. And like you said, he attacked the strike zone. He had something ridiculous like 18 of 25 first pitch strikes and absolutely commanded every single at bat.
Yeah, he was just a joy to watch. That was just a great game. And then last night without Blummer or TK or Julia on the call because of Apple, man, look, I want to just say a quick thing about the broadcast. I have Apple TV because I like Ted Lasso, perhaps, but also because I'm a Mac guy, so I have Apple TV. It's cool. But here's the thing about their broadcasts. First of all, they're insanely dry. Like,
why is that?
If it's going to be a national broadcast, I mean, look, the gold standard, obviously, in terms of commentary, is always going to be the TNT guys, right? The Barkley, Shaq, Kenny Smith. Everybody wants that, and nobody can manufacture that because it's that's what they all want because they're so fun. No, and it's just their chemistry is fantastic. The other night where Shaq and Barkley were laughing about this guy's receding hairline, one of the players from the Celtics, and just they could not stop laughing. I mean, it's just perfect, But I mean, I think but during the game, you need people who are at least somewhat colorful and kind of fun and interesting. They're just not. And by the way,
we're a little moist this morning.
No, see, that would be more
moisture in their broadcast.
Yeah, that's a thing. That's a thing they need. But here's the other thing too. They don't show enough information on the screen in the little box. You don't see who's pitching at that moment. You don't, like, if I tune in like right in the middle of an inning, in the middle of an at bat, I don't know who's at bat. I don't know who's pitching. And they do show these odd little things from, I guess, probably from StatCast, like probability of hit.
I want to know where they get it.
Probability of walk.
I agree. I want to know where they get it too.
It's weird. It's weird. And it's kind of weird. It's like a broadcast for nerds. And it's not entertaining. We just turned the volume off when we were watching last night, but it's an odd. And then, by the way, the set afterwards, they're set for their like post game. It's like they're floating in the ether or something. It's so
it looked like
weird.
Something
like,
out of Space Odyssey.
Sit down. Stop standing up during your things. Like, just sit down. Just sit at a panel. It's fine. Anyway. I will not rant about it anymore, but
No,
I
I'm
will
with
say,
you
what a
in this-
game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, just a couple of things
No,
on the
go
Apple,
ahead. Give
Apple
me your shot.
broadcast. No, they are dry.
Yeah.
That home run call of Yordan's home run. Oh, dear God, man. I don't know. Get excited. I don't care if you like the team or not. Get excited. This is a national broadcast. Be somewhat objective and entertaining. I know Ryan Spielborg's relatively well, and he's not the same on that broadcast as he is on the Colorado Rockies or on his radio show. He's super intellectual. He's super good with his words. He's funny. He's insightful, and I just didn't feel that come through in the broadcast. I don't know if it's his partners or whatever it is. Visually, I think Apple has the best visual game. Their bug that you're talking about that has the stats, the count, the runs. I mean, it could be they could elaborate on that a little bit, but just that little section at the bottom of the screen. There's not enough attention brought to that, and I don't know why they don't explain it better. Because they want it to be a part of the broadcast, but they don't explain it. And I'm like, where do you get the number? Why do you get the number? Why does it change? I want, give me a little bit on it. So when I'm watching the game later, I can go, oh, okay, I get it now.
It feels a bit like, I don't know how many years ago this was, where they tested out doing NFL games with no announcers, where they just had them, it was just quiet. And but on the screen, they had all these different stats and things that you could look at. It was almost like a computer screen, and it just failed because the problem is that people wanted to be guided through the game, and they didn't want to have to stare at the screen every second. Like, sometimes you walk in the other room, whatever it is.
Well, you don't want to watch a live sporting event with closed captioning, and that's what it feels like.
Good call.
You've got to be able to have the broadcast that explains why and when and how and what. But if you're going to have that on your screen, point it out, explain what it is, why it is, and then move on. So that later in the game I can look at it and go, oh, that's what it is, because it's going to change. But if it's on your show, talk about it. Just give me an idea. Yeah. But visually, it's one of the best games I've ever seen.
Oh no, it's an incredible broadcast in terms of how it looks, and they're really, and the editing is very good. Like, we're getting kind of deep into the broadcasting weeds here, but I do think that, which I love, because I love this kind of stuff anyway. But I think, when we watched the playoffs last year, right? Those guys are neutral, but yet they were like, when Yordan hit that home run in the Phillies game,
such a good call. Oh.
Just a great call. You flip this game upside down. Like, it was a great call. And I think that when I listen to the NBA guys, the national broadcasting guys, they're great too. You get and the national football guys are really good. So I just feel like if you're going to do a national broadcast, hockey guys are crazy good.
Well, let me ask you this. You're a media guy who you're not critical. I mean, you write papers about it, but why does it feel like the NHL has enthusiasm? The NBA has enthusiasm. NFL, there's enthusiasm. Why is it when we get these national broadcasts on baseball, there's not that enthusiasm or that consistent enthusiasm?
I feel like it's a good question, but for me, I think it's because of the nature of baseball. I think there's a lot of broadcasters. First of all, you almost never see crossover, but you see crossover all the time between NFL and NBA in terms of announcers, right? Yep. There are guys who do both and do both very, very well. There's the guy whose name always escapes me, but he's the one that does, he's like, from way downtown, bang. I forget his name. He's but he does NFL and there's several of those guys, and they're really good at it. Yeah. I think baseball is done by a lot of guys who are older, and these guys are used to sort of that staid, quiet, sort of contemplative broadcasting. It's like a golf broadcast almost, where they're just there to kind of say, here's what's going on, this is what's happening, and not get too.
God, you just
and honestly, I think part of it too is I know, but and also I think there's a statistical component, because there's a lot of that. Baseball, for me, broadcasting wise, when you listen to it, there's a lot of it's a lot of explanation, a lot of storytelling, right? Yeah. A lot of saying, here's what this stat is for, and here's what this does, and a lot of sort of like, I remember back when I was playing for the Braves and blah blah blah, that kind of thing, which is great. But that doesn't mean it can't be mixed in with, you know, some revelry and some excitement when things go right. And also, I don't know if this is the case, but I do know years ago in many sports, there was a kind of unwritten rule that as a national broadcaster, you're not supposed to get too up because, well, what happens if you do, then you're, you know, thought of as being biased. But the big name national broadcasters, particularly guys like Howard Cosell and John Madden and guys like that, they kind of shifted that narrative away from where they're like, where fans like the excitement of Monday Night Football. You know, they like the excitement of Sunday basketball on CBS early on and then eventually on NBC. So I think that kind of changed the narrative of that, but I'm not sure baseball ever changed that much. And let's be honest, there aren't as many national broadcasts in baseball outside of the postseason. So they don't have, like, unlike football and basketball, they don't really have a crew, right? That comes in and does those games. Yeah. Which would probably help them. But I don't know. I thought, like you said, beautiful. And I think the stat thing could be really cool. It was done correctly. This thing was kind of very dry, but at least the game was not dry.
The game wasn't dry, and the Astros are back to 500. Hey-o.
Unbelievable. They're going to finish finish April 11-11. They're going to finish April 11-11 probably.
I mean, the consistency is ridiculous.
I know. It's like, it's just crazy. Also, Yordan been in a little bit of a slump lately, and bye-bye, baby. When he hit that ball, I was like, oh, Crushville. It was so. I was sitting there in my buddy Frank's house.
When he hits a ball in a situation like that, it's borderline orgasmic.
It is. It's.
I don't know. I don't know how else to explain it anymore.
It's borderline orgasmic is a new drop. You can just absolutely count on that. You can count on that one for sure, because I'm going to tell you why.
Slaps.
That's why, because it slaps. But man, let me tell you something. You're right. When that happened too, like I was telling my wife and my buddy Frank and his girlfriend, I was like, Yordan, if he is on TV, you need to stop whatever you're doing and watch it. That is what he is. And it's, even when he's in the slump, I feel like at any moment there's going to be fireworks.
But isn't that the thing about Yordan that's amazing, is that we can sit there and say he's in a slump. He might be over 8, 10, 12, whatever. Right. His slumps are different than most, because if he goes 2 games without a hit, we're like, oh, what's wrong with the guy? And he figures it out. But it's just amazing that you can be slumping, chasing, not getting your walks, striking out, popping up. And then all of a sudden it's the top of the 8th inning, top of the 9th inning, and there's a runner on base, tie ball game. Best lefty in the league is on the mound, and Yordan smashes one 450 feet. I think that's what makes it that much more incredible, is when you're hot, you're expected to go get that hit. And when you're not, it's like, oh, I hope he gets it. But we didn't do that. When Yordan stepped in, we're like, oh, this is the moment. And he steps up and crushes it. It's ridiculous how consistently clutch he is.
He needs to take that little Mr. October off of Reggie Jackson's hat at the Astros games and get himself one. Because, I mean, that guy, Lord. And by the way, Ryan Presley brought in to actually save a game.
Thank God, finally, right?
I know, right?
Not too many close games.
No, there haven't been. The Astros have not been in many close games. Also, it did feel like there were a few streaks that were kind of slowly being busted over the course of the last week. Alex Bregman has been hitting much better. Jose Abreu's been making really good contact. I mean, he hit that ball last night in a long ways, a couple of them. And then Yordan. But listen, I can't sit here and not talk about Mauricio Dubon's 15-game hitting streak.
Dude, get it,
and the
boy.
fact that he is he's like 7th in baseball in his average. Like, what is happening? It's topsy-turvy world right now. Cats and dogs living together.
Pets' heads are falling off. I mean, let's go get it. Hey, ride that thing as long as you possibly can. I love that Dusty in the past has said, I'm going to ride the hottest guy out there. And he's got one of the hottest guys and he's put him at the top of the lineup and he still continues to produce. Mauricio Dubon has probably been one of the more fun stories. I mean, there's two guys on this roster that I've absolutely thoroughly enjoyed everything about what they're doing. But Mauricio Dubon's at the top because when we broke camp, we were like, man, I hope Hensley and Dubon can hold this thing down until Altuve gets back. And little did we know that Hensley, who was the quote-unquote stick of the group between him and Mauricio, is now the designated come-off-the-bench role play guy. And Mauricio Dubon has just grabbed that second base role and just, put his arms around it and run with it. He's been absolutely incredible. I know it has something to do with the Cuban dominoes. I know it has something to do with hanging around Yordan. But whatever he's doing, bro, just keep doing it. Just keep dialing in whatever you're doing.
He's just out there slapping the ball all over the place too. I mean, he's taking what as Huey Lewis once said. He's taking what they're given because he's working for a living. The guy is out there. He's just whatever pitch comes in. He's out there. Just give it to me, and I'll find a way to get a hit. Yes, let's not forget the Yordan dominoes. I love dominoes. My wife and I play dominoes all the time. She actually spent some time. Look at me. Love dominoes. My wife spent some time in the Dominican Republic. That's where she learned how to play dominoes.
Yep. Does she slam when she's getting like the 25 or the double sixes down and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, you got to.
Yes, and she's one of the most competitive humans I know when it comes to games. But funny, a total good sport. Like she's not like a mean about it, but she is super competitive. So we play cards and dominoes and stuff all the time. And I can understand. Like dominoes is one of those games where it's there's strategy and I can see it, but it's casual. It's you're basically putting together doubles and tens, and it's pretty straightforward.
No, it's definitely a communal sport where you can kind of have the conversation, still play and get away with. Yeah.
So I could see where that would be a good thing. It's not like cards or something where you really need to maybe concentrate. But yeah, I think it's great that he's doing that. And the other guy, by the way, I hope your second guy that you're excited about is Corey Julks. I'm going to guess
100%, no doubt.
God, he's so much fun.
He has been a blast.
Just an absolute blast that guy has been. My goodness. But I'll tell you this. He's our version
of the laser show.
Yes, absolutely. He is a blast. And then, by the way, the serial killer, Phil Maton, is out there just wrecking people right now. And I call him the serial killer because he has no expression ever on his face when he's in the game. He's like Dexter. He's just he's like a sociopath on the mound. And but who cares? The guy is just what is he now? How many innings is it now that he's gone? That it's like I think it's like almost 10 innings scoreless, and he's ridiculous right now. Mm-hmm. He's mowing people down. What is it about him right now that is causing that?
Well, he's always been a high spin guy. That's the reason the Astros went out there and got him, is because that he has a Christian Javier-like fastball, but he doesn't really need it because his spin is so good. But the ability to locate his curveball and slider is what is making him what he is. But the spin is off the charts. I don't know if he's changed arm angles or anything like that, but for whatever reason, he has found that arm slot and he is just wearing hitters out because he's backdoors some curveballs and sliders to left-handed hitters. Yeah. He can bury it down and away to right-handed hitters, but there's nothing. The only thing that's consistent is the ability to execute his pitches, and that's what makes it tough for opposing hitters. He's been fantastic.
Yeah, that it's it was great too last night after Hunter Brown had kind of an iffy start. Looked like he was having some trouble locating. He wasn't
missing by much though. I don't know if you noticed that. He wasn't missing his spots by much. That zone was a little tight, and the credit the Braves for not chasing some of those pitches because he looked wicked again. He just didn't get some of those edges that he would like to get.
Boy, there were a lot of edges that should have been called last night. I mean, there were some pitches like there was in the Ryan Presley's first pitch against their last batter was like it was an inch and a half inside the zone, and then the next one was like on the very corner edge, barely in, and that was a strike. I'm like,
yeah. I have such internal conflict when I see those zones because I'm like, dang it, we need to get those calls. And then inside of me, I'm going, man, I'd love to hit right now.
Where's the robo umps when you need them, right?
Yeah.
It's coming next. But I tell you, Astros looking much better over the past few games. It's been a fun few games. A lot of exciting play, which is, I think what we have come to expect from them as a team.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of, pushing the right buttons and figuring out the sort of, it's fun baseball. And last night, they were down 4-1 after one, right? And so it's just a lot of nothing for a while. And then all of a sudden, that's just, it seems like, and of course, a friend of mine messaged me this morning and said, knew I was doing the podcast and said a couple of notes. First of all, the Astros 7th inning or later are hitting 315.
Yep. No, they're destroying bullpens,
right? Which is just, and that's what they've always done, right? That's always been their MO. Let's get through the starter because they assume that the bullpen's just not going to be very, and they're mostly right. I mean, bullpens aren't great. Also, I didn't know this. The Astros have 25 homegrown players.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
insane.
It is insane. It's unnatural this day and age to be able to draft and develop that well.
That's unreal. But yeah, the whole thing about hitting well at the end, that's always been the Astros' plan. Let's get the starting pitcher, let's wear him out quick and get to the bullpen because, as we all know, most teams don't have great bullpens, right? And so they can't just throw out one guy after another who's fantastic. So it's been great watching that.
There's been another thing to go along with that. That's one of those things I noted. It's a great note. But the Astros hitting with runner, I'm filling out my scorecard today. And one of the notes that I took was they're hitting 260 with runners in scoring position, which is modest, pretty good. But with runners on base, runners in scoring position and 2 outs, 295.
Oh.
So, that kind of goes to the late innings and then the clutch positioning, hitting with 2 outs. They have a lot of 2-out RBIs.
I was going to say, I'd love to see how many runs they've scored with 2 outs this year because it's got to be a lot. It seems like every time they score.
I can look it up. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Well, that's good. That'll give me a moment to talk about something else, and that is the pace of play. Because I feel like it's a good idea to kind of come back to some of these things as we go through the season. The other day there was a game, White Sox and somebody. There was a doubleheader that went 4 hours and 14 minutes. A doubleheader, which. There are games, regular season games last year that went 4 hours and 14 minutes in 9 innings, never mind extra innings. So I know that there are some guys that still don't care for it. But I think if you look around and you read and listen to people on social media and other places, anyone that's say under 40, they love it. It is universally loved, and I like it. I love it too, and I'm not under 40. But it was one of our fellow Believe podcasters, the Wake and Rake guys. They were saying that it's not just a bunch of nut scratching and adjusting batting gloves anymore. That's where so much has been taken out of it, and it's not. They're not wrong. There was a lot of that. If you think about the games where guys would just kind of stand there and Kyle Tucker was a perfect example. He would get that dirt and he'd rub it in his hands and he'd stand there and he'd take a little swing and the guys would walk around the mound. That stuff is gone and I don't miss it, quite frankly. I feel like, get up there, get the pitches out and let's make it happen.
No, there's a lot going on.
Obviously for a broadcaster, it's tougher.
Well, it actually hasn't been too bad. We're all going to adjust to it. What did you ask me about the Astros and their run production with 2 outs?
Not runs with 2 outs. How many runs have they scored with 2 outs?
Well, they have 38 RBIs in that time. It doesn't say runs. It doesn't necessarily have runs, but 38 of them obviously have been driven in.
Wow,
and that's how about that? That's in 95 at bats.
In 95 at bats, they have 38 RBIs.
Yeah.
Holy crap. I mean, that's
getting it done.
ridiculous. That's got to dwarf everybody else. And nicely done, Nerd Blum on the stats there. God bless
I
the
can nerd out.
MLB stats pipeline.
Actually, I'm lying to you. With 2 outs, they have 46 RBIs, seven home runs, 46 RBIs, and they're batting .266 with 2 outs. From the 7th inning on, they are hitting .315 with 6 home runs and 46 RBIs.
Unbelievable. Dude, they're just, I mean, granted, it would be nice that if they could do like they did in that Blue Jays game where they dropped a 7 spot in the first inning and then they could coast like on occasion,
Yeah.
But man, that late inning heroics, and that does bode well, obviously, as we go along, because that's something that just shows the sort of the character of the team as a whole, and the fact that they don't get rattled. And why should they? I mean, some of these guys have been playing hundreds of postseason games,
Well, I was going to say, when you're racking up that many postseason, the regular season, you're just like, all right, it's another tough game.
Yeah. But anyway, that's fantastic. Thank you for pulling that stat. Anyway, the pace of play, though, I really have enjoyed it. And I feel like everybody has adjusted pretty well, except for Max Scherzer, who, by the way, poor Max Scherzer got busted with the sticky stuff. And he's like, it's just sweat and rosin. And of course, the baseball is like, it was sticky, not tacky. And I'm like, oh, my God, this is ridiculous. But if it's that sticky and he's getting spin, what are you going to say? Of course, he was one of the most outspoken against the Astros, so I don't feel bad watching him take one.
Yeah, what makes you wonder what he was doing in 2019? But you know what? It sucks. The only thing, I mean, it sucks because I'm a sticky guy. I'm like, if you need it, use it, whatever. I competed through steroids, sticky amphetamines. I mean, it is what it is. We they were all doing it. Some guys weren't, some guys were, I don't know. But the thing that sucks to me is if he was wearing pinstripes, would it have been different? And the reason I say that is because we saw Domingo Germán for the Yankees go through the same situation and didn't get ejected, doesn't have a 10-game suspension. So why was he victimized in a different way? And I think that's where you need to clean it up and become a little more consistent. If it is a rosin, sweat, rubbing alcohol, rosin, whatever it is that creates that stickiness, if it's on the mound, you're giving it to them because they've figured out how to use it. You shouldn't be penalized for it. Now, I don't know if you take the glove or you take the residue off his hands and send it to, CSI Vegas and say, hey, test this to see what the substance is. But I mean, if you can't have, rules for them and not for them, the whole thing is still kind of sketchy to me. I feel bad for Scherzer, but he's handling it like a man, which I'm pretty impressed with.
Well, it feels like to me that this is like what is a catch in the NFL, right? Nobody can decide what's a catch and what's not a catch. Like what the ball isn't moving when they're, did they pin it on the ground? That's like there's a million like all these little nuances. And with this, it's like, well, it was sticky, not tacky. And I'm like, oh, for Christ's sake,
what's the difference?
Now, admittedly, the one ref said it was the stickiest substance he had felt in like 3 years. Okay, so maybe that is pretty ridiculous.
When was the last time he did anything with stick or towel? Give me a break. That's a terrible comment. That is a terrible comment. The fact that we validate that by saying, oh, he's getting suspended for it, that means nothing. He doesn't know what sticky is.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. Sorry. And it is no, please. Let it fly. This is what we're here for. I just think that when it comes to this stuff, if that's the case, then you can't give nobody should have anything, right? No rosin should be on the mound. Yeah. If that's the deal, if that's what you want, just take it all away. You can't chew bubble gum.
You can't have a dip in. You can't have rosin. Go play.
Right.
I mean, if you're really going to try and do that, because rosin is a legal substance, and that's the other thing. It's said it's an illegal substance on Max Scherzer. How do you know?
Well, what they said is supposedly the rosin he was using wasn't the rosin on the mound, that he used it like in the dugout. And I know, right? Again, it's these, but I'm telling you, this is what we're getting ourselves into because of, and I understand wanting to regulate because they're trying to do this. Let's be honest. The whole purpose is to get more balls hit. And that's the whole deal. They want more offense. They want more people on the base paths. Every rule that they're making is designed specifically to make it harder on pitching. And, because as much as it was driven, at least in part, by steroids, the home run era was a popular era for baseball, right?
Yep.
And
brought life back
so
to the
they're
game.
trying to.
I was there.
Yeah. Yes, you were there. You were in it. You were one of them hitting home runs, not doing steroids, obviously, but but I will say that or as Roger Clemens would say, B12 and lidocaine. Remember that was all his. And when they had in front of the hearings, he goes, "I took B12 and lidocaine." He must have said that like 50 times. It's like, okay,
it's like pleading the fifth.
Got it, Rocket. I know, B12 and lidocaine. Okay, Rocket, gotcha. We heard you the first time.
I've got
here's another one.
Pace of play numbers and BABIP numbers if you're curious.
Yes, please. Let's hear it. I'm definitely interested in that because BABIP is the one I'm fascinated by.
So pace of play in 2021, time of game, 3 hours, 10 minutes. In 2022, time of game, 3 hours and 4 minutes. Any guesses on 2023 so far?
Say it's in the 2 hours and 40-minute range, probably something like that, right?
Ooh, close, but you went over. It's 2 hours and 37 minutes is the average pace. Overall batting average.
Wow.
Overall batting average is up 2 points to 248.
Okay, about the same.
Yep, but the BABIP numbers are kind of interesting because if you take all directions, baseball put in play all over the field, left-handed hitters are up 0.003, so 3/100ths.
Okay.
Right-handed hitters are actually benefiting the most by 0.01. 1-0, so 10 points. And overall, to the pull side, right-handed hitters are benefiting the most, up 0.016. Left-handed hitters are only up 0.006.
I'm telling you, the BABIP numbers. You've talked about this. I think so much of it has to do with the fact that those guys can't get off the dirt in the infield. We saw a little looping base hit. I think it was Bregman that hit yesterday, where if the shortstop had his feet in the grass, he would have caught that.
Yeah, but if he was more to that pull side, he definitely would have had a better angle to it. Yeah,
exactly. And that's. I think you've seen so many of these little bloop singles or line drives that they just can't get to. Right? It's just hit so hard.
The line drive
with
numbers
velocity.
are actually the number that jumps.
Yeah, because certainly because if you're closer to the plate, that's just less reaction time. And so of course you see these guys like they put it looks like their heels are maybe like a millimeter from the grass. They're doing everything they can to get close, but and they still can shift a little. But man, I just think being on the dirt was a maybe is a bigger move than the shift itself. And you brought that up early on. Yeah. And you will completely correct. In that assessment because it's just harder to field when you can't move forward or backward.
It's all about angles on the infield. It's all about angles, how hard a guy hits the ball. But it's interesting to see, those numbers are moving a little bit. But it's kind of interesting that right-handers are benefiting just as much as left-handers because all the talk was getting that guy out of shallow right field. Now you're starting to see line drive and hard hit ground balls in that 4-hole that are actually getting to the right fielder instead of that rover that was hanging out there.
Yeah, those are great numbers. I'm going to be really, as the year goes on, it's going to be fascinating. There was a good story. We'll probably talk about this next time about how the shift has also impacted bunting. And we're seeing actually more sacrifice bunts being laid down this year than we have in recent years because, again, guys can't get in on the grass. So if you get up there and you drop a decent bunt, you have a chance of actually, getting on base. And if not, it's a much more likely sacrifice than it would have been in the past.
And there's more open space for the guy hitting behind him that you just bunted for.
Correct. Exactly. That is exactly right. So did you see, speaking of not bunts, but did you see it was a perfect game into the seventh inning for the Cubs. Jeez. That was and if anybody hasn't seen it, you got to go find the video. The little dribbler, pitcher goes over to pick it up, throw the guy out at first, and the catcher just brain farts. And
that was
he landed on the pitcher. He landed on his back, and they're both on the ground. Just like, I mean, the catcher's got to buy that guy dinner for the rest of his life. I think that was crazy.
Yeah. I can't recall who the catcher was. Game. Yeah, but I know Drew Smiley made a really good pitch, and it was just a full swing, broken bat, soft contact right out in front of home plate. It looked like Smiley might have had a play on it. It would have been tough, but it's even tougher with the catcher on your back. That was the crazy thing. I couldn't believe it.
He was literally he was riding him. It was insane. Like what? I remember mounted him. I remember watching it the first time, and I was just he did mount him. It's like I was just watching it going, what just happened and why? Please, someone explain to me what was just going on out there.
Sit there in stunned silence.
It's just also, by the way, we should mention that the A's are moving to Las Vegas, and I really want to get your take on this because the long-suffering A's fans. First of all, you have to go to the Coliseum, which is just a nightmare to begin with. Yeah. Then you're surrounded by those trombonists who, God bless them, show up anyway. And the vuvuzelas, right? The exactly. I wish sometimes they would just go, they pull the, do the actual sad trombone. But yeah, I mean, but also one of the funniest things I've ever seen at Oakland Coliseum was there was a guy behind the plate. It was 2 years ago against the Astros, and he had this glove that was like 10 times the normal size. And every time somebody would pitch, he would just snap it open and shut. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen. I mean, just really clever. But they're moving to Vegas, just like the Raiders. I mean, Oakland's lost all these guys. I mean, are you going to miss anything about going to Oakland, Lummer?
Not as a broadcaster. Hell no. No, So I went to school in the Bay Area. I went to UC Berkeley. So I have an affinity for that Oakland, Bay Area. And I understand the mystique of that franchise and what they did in the 70s, winning back-to-back titles. They three-peated. So there's history there. And I also had an opportunity when I was in college to actually play a game there against, some Oakland A's, an exhibition game. And I played there before Mount Davis. And I know that people have an affinity for Al Davis and what he did for that organization, but he was kind of shady in some of the practices. But I can honestly say that the downfall of that stadium was Mount Davis. As soon as that was built, the entire stadium went to hell. Fans didn't like it. Players didn't like it. But it's been dilapidated. It's old. The Warriors have moved on. I mean, that complex made sense in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. But through the 90s, you could see it start to fall apart, and it became just this mausoleum of concrete. And it's unfortunate because some of the nicest people I've ever worked with have been at the Oakland Coliseum, and they're still at the Coliseum. No matter what that stadium or how that team has gone, those people have maintained an unbelievable nicety about them, and you have a certain level of compassion for them because the stadium is awful, the team is awful, yet their spirits are still pretty good. So I appreciate that about them. My question is, I understand that, economic times in California are a little sketchy and rough at the time, but the inability to give those fans something to be proud of is what frustrates me.
Yeah.
So ownership, this is on ownership. Yeah. And they're going to move to Vegas. And that provides the next question for me. If I'm a Las Vegas resident, I could understand the hockey team coming here. It's great. It's fun. It's exciting. They did a great job. The Raiders, they've got mystique. They've got this certain aura about them and of this organization. They come, we're going to show up, and obviously we're going to have equity in our seats when we sell them to every visiting team that comes in.
Yeah.
The A's say they want to show up. if I'm in Vegas, am I going, damn, great, the A's are coming? I mean, what product are they going to bring to Vegas? I would imagine there's got to be a certain expectation that has to be put on the Oakland A's to produce a product that makes me want to show up in a new stadium. Not just a nice stadium.
Absolutely.
I want a product.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. And that's one of the big arguments with this, because look, Vegas was on the list of expansion teams, which is probably going to happen in the next couple of years. I think Nashville's
going to be around the same time,
a shoe-in.
Because the whole thing is to build a stadium. They won't be there until 2027.
Yeah, and everybody's saying 2024 is when they're talking about maybe announcing expansion. And so, it'd probably be by 2026 when new teams hit. Nashville's definitely going to get a team. And then the other question is, where's the other one going to go? And this obviously opens up a West Coast spot. So you start thinking about places like Portland, could be an option, especially, I mean, not that we need another Pacific Northwest team, God help us, but,
dude, travel.
And then at that point you start thinking about legitimately thinking about realignment.
No, it is realignment. If they expand, it's
point.
Realignment. It has to. I'm with you. Yes.
Yeah, you go into like 4-team divisions or something like that, but yeah, I think that's a valid concern. If you're like, when teams move around, whenever they move around, you don't really want a cursed team, right? You don't want a team that has like, that's been bad and seems to continue to be bad. So yeah, it's gonna and look, as much as the Coliseum has been terrible and it's been it's been kind of a really weird time, for the A's over the last decade now almost. Maybe a change of scenery is good. I just hate to see Oakland lose a team because I hated to look, as much as I hated the Sonics. I hated when Howard Schultz sold the team and they moved to Oklahoma.
That was
City.
awful.
I hated it. I hated it.
2020.
It was terrible for those fans.
Let me ask you something. 2020. Guess who the American League West Division champs were? 2020.
Was it the A's?
It was the Oakland A's.
Good night.
It's 2023.
Well,
and they've quit on their fans and they've quit on that organization.
The COVID season. Yeah. Maybe it'll be good for them then. I still question the whole look. There were 5 guys just yesterday in the NFL who were suspended for gambling. Moving things to Vegas is not going to exactly enhance the chances of guys not gambling. At least, maybe they'll just, on games. And honestly, Blummer too, people can do what they want. They're adults, but I do. There is that influence of gambling on young guys with lots of money is not good, And so I do worry sometimes about young football players, young athletes being in Sin City, that can't be good. Going to the Peppermint Palace or whatever.
Hey, NFL, give the guys better contracts.
Right. No, 100%. 100%.
No, if I'm a young player and I know if I get hurt, I'm going to get released from my contract or get shoved aside, then I'm going to take a payday.
That is, I'm telling you what, that's,
about.
Yes, it is.
No guarantees, no nothing.
Brutal. It's brutal in the NFL, man. NFL stands for not for long. I mean, that's really So, all right, last quick thing, kind of a weird one. I love Jason Stark's Weird and Wild column that he does once a week.
He's good.
I don't know if you've read it before, but it's so good. It's just it's so funny and so filled with interesting stuff. One of the things he mentioned, I don't think it was this week, it might have been last week. They were talking about that possum that got out onto the field that they had to run out and because they were talking about the pitch clock and how, how do you, because umpires have been saying the MLB wants them to write down every reason that they're getting around the anytime they're dealing with the pitch clock, right? They have to write down what happened in that moment. So how do they define that? It's like possum on the field. What is the protocol, right? It's just awesome. Right. And of course we've seen all sorts of critters, cats and dogs and possums,
squirrels,
and, skunks, squirrels, all kinds of stuff. I'm wondering, what was the weirdest animal that ever ran onto the field when you were playing? Was there ever a time you felt like there was, or was it, or just did it not happen for you?
I don't think it was an animal. I think what the bees are insects.
Oh,
am I wrong?
The The bees. They're animals.
That was in San Diego.
Still animal.
Yeah, we had a bee game in San Diego. We had a bee delay for a good 45 minutes to an hour on a Sunday, trying to find, an exterminator, I guess, for lack of a better word or understanding, to come in and whack these bees that ended up underneath in a jacket of a ball girl. And he proceeded to come out and just wreck about what looked like 1 million bees. And he walked off the field to a standing ovation. And we finished the game. Yeah, it was crazy.
What? Yeah, bees, man. Yeah, I don't fuck with bees. Like, sorry for the colorful language.
There was it's funny you say that, because a lot of us feel the same way. Getting stung sounds bad. Getting stung multiple times is miserable. Oh. But I can't remember who the left fielder was. I know his last name is Banks. But at that time, he was about 6'8", 300 pounds. He was just a beast. He hit bombs. He was playing left field, and you kind of heard this and like this buzzing coming across the field, and out of nowhere, this behemoth of a man comes sprinting in from left field, and we're like, "What the hell is going on, man?" And he comes running in. He's like, I ain't going back out there. And we turned around and looked, and sure enough, there's a swarm of bees coming in and from left field into this poor ball girl's jacket, and the game's delayed. But yeah, that's to your point. Hell no, I'm not getting near any of that.
Oh my God, that is so good. That is so funny. The worst ever happened to me was I was about 10 or 11, and my dad, we had a boat. That my dad always had boats for fishing. And I decided, like, this is some stupid thing 11 or 12-year-old would do. I had a ball. I was kicking it around, being goofy. I thought, what would be fun is if I kicked it from inside the boat, because it'll go higher or something. So I get inside the boat, and I proceed to try and kick the ball. First of all, I missed the ball. Second of all, I kicked the underside of the center console on the boat, which, by the way, that hurt. And then third, in addition to kicking the underside of the console itself, I also disturbed a nest of hornets that happened to have gotten in there over the winter. They proceeded to attack me. I fell out of the boat onto the driveway.
This is not even in water.
And no, this was on the driveway in my house. It's been sitting there over the winter,
At least you could have dove into the water and avoided the damage.
No, it was one of the dumber moments of my life when I look back and I'm like, you were an idiot as a kid.
Live and learn.
But hey, what are you going to do? All right, Blummer. It's a Saturday in the world. You've got, what time's the game? Is it a day game or night game? Don't have my schedule in front of me.
I hope it's a night game. I haven't even checked.
You better figure it out.
I know.
You gotta go to the game.
I know. I need to pay better attention to my life.
How's the stadium
It's
down
at
there?
720 East Coast, 620 Central. Sorry.
Nice. So how's the ballpark for
it's great.
For the Braves? Is it good?
No, they've done a really good job. This place is gorgeous. They've got the Battery is what they call it. Restaurants, bars, shopping outside the right field gate, I believe it is. Yeah. Plenty of hotels. It's outstanding. And the only thing I don't like about this ballpark, it's busy. And what I mean by lights, fireworks, ribbon boards and scoreboards everywhere. Stimulation wise, it's a little much for me, but for the fan, it's fantastic. It's great sight lines. There's plenty to do, good food. Yeah, it's good.
Do they need to put up one of those signs that, like before movies, where like these scenes may contain flashing lights? You worry about people having seizures.
I would have adhered to that and been thankful for it.
That's hilarious. Wow. Well, I know Atlanta's actually a pretty cool town. A lot of people compare it to Houston in terms of stylistically and stuff. It's a pretty fascinating place. I was there a few years ago, really had a good time. So seems like it could be a good time. And then where are you off to after Atlanta?
No, I know you're Tampa.
I was going to say, Tampa, I know where you're going. I know where you're going.
Yeah. And I don't know if TK listens to this pod. I don't know if TK listens to this podcast, but there's only one person in the league that likes Tampa, and it's that guy.
Really? We got to get TK on here so he can explain himself.
Yeah. Oh,
I want to know. Although I tell you, if you take a little trip an hour south there to Sarasota, that place is nice.
Well, even like
That would be
Clearwater
the
Beach
one-
is gorgeous, and Tampa is a good
yeah.
city, but it's not the it's Tampa. It's the
Where's where
St.
the ballpark
Petersburg
is.
Rays. It's not Tampa Rays.
I know. I remember
So
driving through there
stupid.
and thinking, "What is this desolate wasteland that I am in?"
It's like saying Anaheim is Los Angeles. Jeez Louise.
Right. Yeah, I know. Oh boy. Let's not get. We shouldn't dig into that can of worms. We're gonna.
Well, that's in the expansion. I mean, new stadium type talk too. Tampa Bay is one of those teams.
I just read yesterday they're in talks. So apparently they're trying to fix it and trying to perhaps either enhance the area it's in or move it to another location. I don't know how you enhance that area. Honestly, it's like the area around NRG Park here in Houston. I mean, it's like, no offense, but NRG Park, I don't know if I was a visiting team, I'd want to because everybody just hops the light rail and comes downtown.
Yeah.
Well, what is there to do around NRG Park?
I would imagine the age demographic around NRG is a little bit different than Tampa or St. Pete or wherever the hell this ball club is.
You ain't lying about that. I mean, have you ever tried to drive through Central Florida? It's not a pleasant experience. I did it once and I swore I would never do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody drives like 35 miles an hour down the 10 trillion toll roads they have. It's like, no thanks. Everybody, all the retirees from the Northeast who are living there.
Yep.
Oh, God. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We're going to be back on Wednesday with a fresh pod brought to you by Bet Online. Huge thanks to all our listeners and viewers out there, including you folks in Tampa, who we just feel sorry for. Not because of Tampa, but because of where you have to go see a ball game.
Yeah, just the stadium.
We're very
that's
thankful. Yeah, just the stadium. Tampa's lovely. You also, by the way, you can drive right down the coast and go to this area where you can see manatees in like real life, which is amazing. It's just giant sea cows. Thanks for subscribing, commenting. Keep that on up. We're very thankful for all that and keep it coming. You guys have a fantastic, beautiful weekend out there. I'm going to get out there and do something myself. And we will see you on Wednesday. Go Astros.